The beginnings of an online connection. Jack Marlowe was no ordinary man. In his early 20s, tall, with intense blue eyes and a jawline that could only be described as chiseled, he was the very image of confidence. As a dedicated police officer, he carried a strong sense of duty, taking immense pride in his job. But beneath the crisp uniform and the serious demeanor lay a young man with a heart that yearned for something more. A connection, a spark, something that would make his life feel complete. Every day, he put on his uniform, patrolled the streets, and kept his city safe. Yet, in the quiet moments of his day, when he found himself alone, Jack couldn't ignore the lingering feeling of emptiness. It was on one of those quiet, lonely nights that Jack found himself scrolling through his phone. He clicked on an app, just another social media platform where he occasionally kept up with old friends and shared the odd photo or two. But that night, something unusual caught his eye. A message appeared from a user he didn't recognize, someone going by the name of Sunshine. Intrigued, he opened the message, finding a simple greeting, something polite yet warm. Her words carried a kindness that was rare in the fast-paced, often impersonal world he knew. Over the next few days, Jack and Sunshine began exchanging messages. It started with small talk, innocent questions, and everyday stories. She told him about her love for books and sunsets, how she adored poetry, and could spend hours listening to her favorite songs. Jack found himself sharing his own stories, tales from his days on patrol, his dreams of traveling, his love for the outdoors. Though their conversations began with little expectation, each message felt like a puzzle piece, revealing more about who they were and drawing them closer together. Jack couldn't see her face, yet he felt he knew her. Her words painted vivid pictures in his mind, each response a stroke of color on the canvas of his imagination. She was witty, sharp, and had a way of looking at life that left him mesmerized. Her laugh, though he couldn't hear it, echoed through her messages, bringing warmth to his day. Every conversation left him eager for the next, each message a welcome reprieve from his demanding job. As days turned into weeks, their bond grew stronger. Jack felt a rare kind of happiness, one he hadn't felt in years. It didn't matter that they hadn't shared pictures or seen each other's faces. In his mind, Sunshine was a vision of warmth, someone who brought a light into his life that he hadn't realized he'd been missing. Her beauty was evident in her kindness, her understanding, and the way she made him feel valued and seen. Despite their lack of physical contact, Jack felt an undeniable attraction. Their conversations moved from casual chats to late-night heart-to-hearts. They spoke of dreams, fears, and hopes, bearing parts of their souls that they kept hidden from the rest of the world. Sunshine became Jack's confidant, his secret companion in the quiet hours of the night. He found himself sharing his doubts, his struggles, even the burdens that came with his job. And she, in turn, listened, offering words of comfort and understanding, her messages like a lifeline. By the time a year had passed, Jack knew he was in love. The realization hit him one evening as he reread their messages, each word a reminder of the connection they had built. It was as though she had become a part of him, a piece of his soul. He found himself thinking about her constantly, his mind wandering to what she might be doing or what she'd say in certain moments. She was the first person he thought of in the morning and the last person he wanted to talk to before he slept. The idea of meeting her in person began to fill his thoughts. Though he treasured their conversations, Jack craved more. He wanted to see her face, hear her laugh and look into her eyes. He wanted to know if the magic they shared online would hold up in the real world. And so, after months of contemplation, he gathered the courage to suggest they meet. When he finally asked, his heart pounded in his chest, his fingers hovering over the keyboard as he typed the words. He wondered if she'd feel the same, if she, too, longed to see him as much as he did her. Her response came quickly, a simple yes. 2. A year of conversations. Jack and Sunshine's daily chats became a cherished ritual for them both. In their messages, they explored their worlds together, painting pictures of their lives with words alone. Sunshine would talk about the little things that made her day special, the books she was reading, the songs that made her dance in her living room, and the dreams she held close to her heart. She had a gentle yet vibrant way of seeing the world, her optimism shining through even on days that weren't easy. Jack found himself swept up in her perspective, seeing everything a little brighter, as if through her eyes. Jack found himself swept up in her perspective, seeing everything a little brighter, as if through her eyes. At first, their messages were brief, like the simple exchanges of new friends. But as time went on, their conversations grew longer, spilling over into the early hours of the morning. They shared childhood stories, funny moments, and even their struggles. Jack talked about the challenges he faced in his job, the days that weighed heavily on him, and how he sometimes felt like he was missing something essential in life. Sunshine listened, responding with a kindness and understanding that left him feeling seen in a way he hadn't felt before. Their connection deepened as they explored their fears, their dreams, and even their failures. Sunshine admitted her love of writing, sharing bits of poetry and stories she'd penned. She confessed that she often felt misunderstood by others, that sometimes she feared her dreams were too big. Jack, in turn, opened up about the pressures of his job, the loneliness he felt despite being surrounded by people every day. He shared his dream of traveling, of exploring places beyond the city he'd known all his life. The distance didn't seem to matter as their bond grew stronger. Jack realized that he looked forward to their conversations more than anything else. Sunshine was no longer just a name on a screen. She had become his confidant, his friend, his spark of happiness at the end of each day. She was there in every quiet moment, in every laugh, and even in his thoughts when they weren't talking. He hadn't seen her face or heard her voice, but he felt he knew her, maybe even better than anyone else in his life. Over time, Jack's heart began to understand what his mind hadn't yet fully realized. He was falling in love. He didn't know exactly when it happened, but somewhere between her warm words and shared dreams, he had found himself captivated. Sunshine had become more than just a friend. She was a part of him. She had shown him a version of himself that he had never known, one filled with hope, possibility, and a quiet kind of happiness. As they reached the 1-year mark, Jack knew he wanted more. The connection they shared felt too powerful to remain confined to a screen. He wanted to meet her, to see if the magic they had created in their conversations could hold up in real life. It was a daunting thought, and the idea of breaking the mystery between them was both thrilling and terrifying. Yet the more he thought about it, the more he realized he couldn't keep pretending that words alone were enough. With a mixture of excitement and nervousness, Jack finally worked up the courage to ask her if they could meet in person. His heart raced as he typed out the question, wondering if she would feel the same way. And then, as he waited for her reply, the seconds stretched on, feeling like an eternity. When her answer finally came, it was everything he had hoped for, a simple, heartfelt yes. 3. The big day arrives. The day had finally come. Jack woke up feeling a mix of excitement and nerves that he hadn't experienced in years. Today was the day he would meet Sunshine, the woman who had filled his life with joy, warmth, and meaning for the past year. He spent extra time preparing, choosing his favorite outfit, wondering what she would think of him in person. It was strange. He had faced countless challenges as a police officer, yet nothing had him feeling quite as nervous as meeting her. Jack had tried to imagine Sunshine so many times over the past year, piecing together fragments of who she was, based on her words. In his mind, she was radiant and full of life, with an inner beauty that far surpassed appearances. And while they'd never shared photos, he was sure he would recognize her as soon as he saw her. The connection they had was that strong. Surely, he thought, he would just know. With a final deep breath, he made his way to the small cafe they'd chosen for their first meeting. The cafe was cozy, with soft lighting and a warm atmosphere, the perfect setting for their long-awaited encounter. Jack scanned the room, his heart racing, and then he saw her, a beautiful young woman standing by the window, her eyes scanning the crowd with the same excitement and nervousness he felt. She was every bit as captivating as he had imagined, though she looked different from what he had expected. As he walked closer, he realized Sunshine was a black woman, a detail that surprised him. Jack had unknowingly created a different image in his mind, an image that was now being replaced with the reality of the incredible person standing before him. But his surprise quickly turned into a mix of shock and confusion. He couldn't process the discrepancy between what he had imagined and what he saw. For a brief, uncomfortable moment, Jack felt his long-held biases rise to the surface, and he was blindsided by his own reaction. "Who are you?" he found himself saying, his tone betraying his surprise. He didn't know why he felt this way, or why he had expected something else, but his response was harsher than he intended. The light in Sunshine's eyes dimmed, and he saw the hurt flash across her face. The person he had come to care for so deeply was standing before him, vulnerable, and he was letting his own narrow expectations hurt her. Sunshine stammered an apology, her eyes filling with tears. She had been looking forward to this day as much as he had, and his reaction was crushing. She looked around, feeling the stares of the other patrons, the embarrassment of being judged by someone she thought loved her. She turned and fled, her heart breaking with every step. Jack watched her go, a knot of regret forming in his chest, but he was paralyzed by his own confusion and the judgmental thoughts that still lingered in his mind. As he left the cafe, anger and regret swirled inside him, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that he had been misled. His mind was clouded with resentment, and he couldn't see past his own disappointment. He got into his car and sped away, his mind racing as fast as the car. To escape his thoughts, he reached for a bottle he'd left in his glove compartment, taking a long swig as he drove. Lost in his frustration, Jack barely noticed the car in front of him, and before he could react, his car veered off the road. The impact was brutal, and everything went dark as he lay there, his body broken and his mind echoing with the last look of hurt he'd seen in Sunshine's eyes. 4. Reckless driving and a bitter heart. As Jack lay on the roadside, his world spinning in pain and confusion, moments from earlier that day replayed in his mind. The hurt in Sunshine's eyes was etched into his memory, a stark reminder of his own shortcomings. Regret washed over him, heavier than the physical pain. He'd let down the one person who had truly understood him, blinded by his own prejudices. That feeling of anger that had consumed him was now replaced by a raw, bitter guilt that clung to him as he drifted in and out of consciousness. When paramedics arrived, they carefully lifted Jack from the wreck, his injuries severe. His once strong, confident body lay motionless, each movement sending waves of pain through him. As he was rushed to the hospital, Jack felt the weight of his actions bearing down, both emotionally and physically. It was only then, in his moments of vulnerability, that he began to truly understand what he had lost in his anger. Sunshine had been his closest confidant, the one person who accepted him without reservation, but in a single instant he had let that slip away. Hours passed in a blur of doctors and treatments. His body, battered and broken, was wrapped in casts and bandages, his mind clouded by medication and regret. Yet somewhere in his haze, he felt a presence beside him, a soft, comforting touch, a whisper of reassurance. It was familiar, bringing with it a sense of calm that he hadn't felt since his accident. He wasn't sure if it was real or just a figment of his imagination, but it brought him peace amidst the pain. Days went by as Jack's condition stabilized. Each day he felt that same gentle presence beside him. Someone adjusted his blankets, offered a soft word of encouragement, and brought a warmth into the sterile, lonely hospital room. He wondered who this person was, this mysterious figure who was so selflessly by his side during his darkest moments. His body was healing, but his heart was burdened by the memory of the one person he longed to see, the one person he thought he would never be able to face again. Yet, in his brokenness, he began to hope that maybe, somehow, he would have the chance to make things right. 5. A second chance in the shadows of regret. As Jack's body slowly began to heal, he started gaining moments of clarity. Each time he woke, he felt the warmth of someone holding his hand, a soft whisper telling him he'd be okay. At first he thought it was the nurses, but this presence felt familiar, steady, filled with an unspoken kindness that struck a chord deep within him. One morning he forced his eyes open, determined to see who was by his side. When his vision cleared, he saw her, Sunshine, the woman he had hurt, the woman he had pushed away in his moment of weakness and anger. She was seated next to him, her face filled with a compassion he couldn't comprehend. Despite everything he had done, here she was, caring for him as if nothing had happened. A wave of shame crashed over him, and he found it almost unbearable to meet her gaze. She noticed him stir and gently smiled, but it was a sad, weary smile that spoke of forgiveness and pain. "You're awake," she said softly, her voice filled with relief. Jack struggled to speak, his mouth dry and his heart heavy. He tried to form words, to tell her he was sorry, that he regretted everything, but no words seemed enough. The shame was overwhelming, and all he could manage was a weak, broken, "I'm so sorry." Sunshine's eyes softened, and she nodded, acknowledging the weight of his apology. "I know, Jack," she replied quietly, "but you needed to see it for yourself." Her voice was steady but kind, as if she understood the turmoil inside him. She wasn't there to punish him or make him feel worse. She was there because she still cared, despite the hurt he'd caused her. Jack was silent, processing her words. For the first time, he realized the depth of her kindness, her strength and her grace. She had every reason to walk away, to leave him alone in his suffering. Yet here she was, reminding him of the love they had shared, even if it was imperfect. A single tear rolled down his cheek as he whispered, "I was blind, and I let my own fears get in the way of something real." Sunshine gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. "We all have our own struggles, Jack. I forgave you long before you ever asked." She leaned in closer, her voice gentle but resolute. "You have to heal. Not just your body, but your heart. I believe in you." Jack felt his heart break and begin to mend at the same time. Sunshine's forgiveness was something he hadn't thought he deserved, but it was also the very thing that gave him the strength to face himself. In that moment, Jack knew that he had been given a second chance, a chance to truly see the world with open eyes and an open heart. As days passed, Sunshine continued to visit, supporting him through his recovery, sharing laughter and conversation as they had once done. Jack grew stronger, not just physically but emotionally, learning from her patience and grace, and slowly as he healed, so did the bond between them, now built on a foundation of forgiveness and understanding that neither would take for granted. 6. A love forged through forgiveness. With each passing day, Jack's strength returned, but the real transformation was happening within. Sunshine's visits brought him a sense of hope and peace that was both humbling and healing. He still couldn't fully understand her selflessness, how she had found the strength to forgive him after everything. But Sunshine's kindness was steadfast, her support unwavering, and Jack began to see his own heart in a new light. For the first time, he let go of the judgment and fear that had once clouded his feelings. Their conversations were different now, more open, more vulnerable. They spoke of their pasts, of the ways they'd both been hurt, and the struggles they'd faced alone. Jack shared stories of his childhood, moments that had shaped his beliefs, and fears he had never expressed to anyone. Sunshine listened with an empathy that warmed his soul. And she, too, shared her own experiences, the challenges of growing up with strength and resilience in a world that often judged her for things beyond her control. Through these conversations, Jack began to understand just how much strength it took to live with such grace. Sunshine's warmth and kindness weren't just natural, they were choices she made every day. Her ability to forgive and her refusal to let anger or bitterness define her. These were qualities Jack deeply admired, qualities he hoped to cultivate within himself. One evening, as the sun cast a soft glow through his hospital window, Jack reached for her hand. "Sunshine," he said, his voice tender, "I've made so many mistakes. I pushed you away because of my own blindness, my own fears. But through it all, you stayed by my side, showing me the true meaning of love and forgiveness. I don't deserve you, but I can't imagine my life without you." Sunshine's eyes glistened as she smiled, a warmth spreading between them. "Jack, love isn't about perfection or deserving. It's about seeing each other's flaws and still choosing to stay. We've both made mistakes, but that doesn't change what we mean to each other. It only makes us stronger." In that moment, Jack knew he had been given a rare gift, a love built on patience, forgiveness, and understanding. The woman he had once hurt had shown him a path to redemption, and he was determined to walk it, to become the man she deserved. Their hands intertwined, they sat together in silence, sharing a quiet moment that spoke of promises unspoken, yet deeply felt. As he continued to heal, so did their relationship. When Jack was finally discharged, Sunshine was there to help him take those first steps into a new chapter, one they would walk together. No longer bound by the limitations of the past, they looked forward with a shared hope, a hope that love, true and unwavering, could overcome any obstacle. And from that day on, Jack knew that his life, once filled with emptiness, had found its true light in the woman he would forever cherish as his sunshine. 7. Building a new future together. After his discharge, Jack's life felt renewed. Every step outside the hospital was like entering a new world, one where he was no longer burdened by the weight of his past mistakes, but inspired by the love and forgiveness that had been shown to him. Sunshine was by his side every step of the way, supporting him as he adjusted to life again, both physically and emotionally. Together, they shared moments that felt simple but deeply meaningful, long walks in the park, quiet mornings over coffee, and conversations that no longer held barriers. Each day, Jack found himself discovering more about Sunshine, the quirks she'd never mentioned in their chats, the little things that made her laugh, the joy she found in life's simplest moments. He came to realize that she was more incredible in person than he could have ever imagined. As they spent more time together, their bond grew stronger. Jack wanted to show Sunshine that he was truly changed, that her forgiveness hadn't been in vain. He began volunteering in his community, driven to make a positive impact and connect with people in a way he never had before. Sunshine joined him, and together they worked side by side, making a difference in the lives of others. It was their way of healing the world a little, just as they had healed each other. One evening, as they watched the sun dip below the horizon, Jack turned to her, a look of gratitude and admiration in his eyes. "Sunshine," he began, his voice filled with emotion, "you've taught me what love really is. It's not just about happiness and joy. It's about being willing to see each other's flaws and still choosing to stay. You showed me that love is forgiveness, patience, and understanding, and I want to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that love." Sunshine smiled, a soft glow in her eyes. "Jack, we've been through so much and we've grown together. I believe in us, in the future we're building." She took his hand, and they sat together, the warmth of their love and the promise of their future filling the silence. From that day on, Jack and Sunshine continued to walk their path together, committed to building a life grounded in love, respect, and resilience. Their story, once marked by hurt and misunderstanding, became one of redemption, hope, and the transformative power of forgiveness. They knew there would be challenges, but with each other they were ready to face whatever came their way. And as they looked to the future, they knew their love, like the rising sun, would only grow brighter with each new day. 8. Facing the past. Together. As the weeks turned into months, Jack and Sunshine's relationship flourished. Their days were filled with laughter, adventure, and a shared commitment to making the world a better place. But as Jack embraced this new chapter in his life, shadows from the past began to creep in. Memories of that fateful day, his anger, the hurtful words he had said, haunted him. Though he had worked hard to move forward, he often felt the weight of his past mistakes pressing heavily on his shoulders. One evening, as they strolled through a vibrant street fair, the sights and sounds of the festival brought Jack a sense of joy he hadn't felt in a long time. He watched Sunshine dance with delight, her laughter ringing through the air, and for a moment he felt a weight lift. But just as quickly, the memory of his earlier actions returned, pulling him back into a dark space. The guilt of how he had treated her that day began to resurface, and he felt the familiar knot of shame tighten in his chest. "Jack?" Sunshine's voice broke through his thoughts, pulling him back to the present. She stopped, concern etched across her face as she studied him. "You okay?" Jack hesitated, the conflict within him evident. "I'm just thinking about everything," he finally admitted, his voice heavy. "Sometimes I feel like I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you." Sunshine's expression softened as she reached for his hand. "You do deserve this, Jack. We've both made mistakes, but we're not defined by them. We're building something beautiful together. You need to believe that." "I know," he replied, looking into her eyes. But the weight of his past still lingered. "But I can't help but think about how I hurt you. I don't want to lose you again." "You won't," Sunshine assured him, squeezing his hand. "But you need to let it go. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. I've forgiven you, and I want us to keep moving forward." Jack took a deep breath, letting her words sink in. He realized that he was still allowing his past mistakes to control him, preventing him from fully embracing the present. He needed to confront the hurt and anger he felt, not just toward himself, but toward the societal expectations that had once clouded his judgment. Determined to confront these feelings, Jack suggested they attend a community meeting focused on racial issues and healing. Sunshine agreed, seeing it as an opportunity for both of them to grow together. They spent the evening listening to powerful stories and engaging in honest discussions about race, forgiveness, and the importance of understanding different perspectives. As they left the meeting, Jack felt a sense of relief wash over him. He had faced his fears head-on, allowing the conversation to challenge his preconceived notions. Sunshine walked beside him, a proud smile on her face. "You did great tonight," she said, nudging him playfully. "I'm proud of you." "Thanks," Jack replied, feeling lighter. "It's all about learning and growing, right? I still have a long way to go, but I want to be the best version of myself for you." Sunshine beamed, and as they walked home under the stars, Jack felt more connected to her than ever. He understood that healing wasn't linear. It would take time and effort, but he was committed to the journey. Together they would face the past and look forward to a future filled with understanding, love, and the promise of new beginnings. 9. Lessons learned and a new beginning. The journey Jack and Sunshine embarked on together was not just about healing their relationship, it was also about discovering profound lessons that would shape their lives moving forward. Each experience, each challenge they faced, became an opportunity for growth and understanding. As they continued to navigate their new reality, they learned valuable lessons that would define their path together. 1. The power of forgiveness. One of the most significant lessons was the power of forgiveness. Jack learned that forgiving oneself was often the hardest but most necessary step in healing. Sunshine had shown him the importance of letting go of guilt and embracing the possibility of redemption. It wasn't just about forgiving others, it was about finding peace within oneself. Jack learned that holding on to resentment could hinder his ability to move forward and fully embrace the love and support around him. 2. Embracing vulnerability. Through their open conversations, Jack and Sunshine discovered the strength in vulnerability. Jack had always prided himself on being strong and in control, but he realized that true strength lay in being open about his feelings and fears. Sunshine encouraged him to express his insecurities, and in doing so, he found a deeper connection with her. They both learned that vulnerability could foster intimacy, trust, and understanding, creating a stronger bond. 3. The importance of listening. Their experiences at the community meeting taught them the vital importance of listening. Jack learned that understanding different perspectives required genuine effort and empathy. He realized that listening wasn't just about hearing words, it was about being present, understanding emotions, and respecting the experiences of others. This lesson extended beyond their relationship. It became a guiding principle in all his interactions, fostering deeper connections with those around him. 4. Acknowledging and confronting biases. Jack's participation in discussions about race and social issues helped him confront his own biases. He learned that acknowledging his preconceived notions didn't make him a bad person. It made him human. By facing these biases head-on, he could challenge himself to grow and change. This lesson became an integral part of his journey, reinforcing the idea that understanding one's privileges and biases was essential for fostering genuine connections. 5. The beauty of growth together. As they continued their journey, Jack and Sunshine learned that growth is often a shared experience. They found comfort in supporting one another through challenges and celebrating each other's victories. They realized that love was not just about shared happiness, but also about standing together during tough times. Each lesson learned, every obstacle overcome, brought them closer, weaving a tapestry of shared experiences that strengthened their bond. 6. The value of community. Through their volunteer work and community involvement, Jack and Sunshine discovered the importance of belonging to a community. They learned that connection with others could provide support, encouragement, and a sense of purpose. They both realized the impact they could have when they worked together, creating ripples of change that extended beyond their relationship. A new beginning. With these lessons in hand, Jack and Sunshine looked toward the future with renewed hope and determination. They understood that life would continue to throw challenges their way, but they were ready to face them together. Their love had been tested, but through forgiveness, vulnerability, and a commitment to growth, they had emerged stronger than ever. Jack took Sunshine's hand, gazing into her eyes. I never imagined I could learn so much from you. You've shown me that love is a journey, not a destination." Sunshine smiled, her heart swelling with pride. "And together we can navigate any road. We'll keep learning, growing, and building a life filled with love and understanding." As they stood together, ready to embrace whatever came next, Jack realized that they had created a beautiful new beginning, one marked by lessons learned, hearts open, and a love that would only deepen with time.